Las Vegas isn't just a place of gambling, lights, and spectacles. It's an economic thermometer that, every so often, leaps ahead of the entire world. Its hotels, casinos, and conventions seem like simple entertainment venues, but in reality, they're financial sensors that reveal what's to come. In 2001, before the recession hit the United States, Las Vegas was already showing signs of exhaustion. In 2008, when markets were still debating whether it was in danger, the Strip began to empty, heralding the Great Recession. Today, in 2025, history is repeating itself. Fewer visitors, falling prices, and a slower beating economic pulse. Coincidence? No, because every time Las Vegas starts to shut down, the entire world feels the jolt soon after. That city in the middle of the desert is, in reality, a mirror ahead of the global economy. Stay until the end of this video because understanding what's happening in Las Vegas today is like peering into the future of your own wallet, your country, and even your family. The hidden heartbeat of the city. Las Vegas isn't just a city of casinos and bright lights, it's a living organism whose heart beats to the rhythm of its visitors. That heartbeat, invisible to many, is measured in cold numbers: hotel occupancy, revenue per room, convention attendance. But what's fascinating is how this pulse begins to change long before the big banks or financial institutions announce a crisis. In 2000, for example, Las Vegas reached a hotel occupancy rate of 89.1%. It was a solid indicator, an indicator of health. But in 2001, that figure fell to 84.7%. It was a drop of just over 4 percentage points. To a casual observer, it might seem insignificant. However, in a city that depends on filling every room, even that drop translates into thousands of empty rooms every night, dozens of restaurants with empty tables, and shows that fail to fill seats. That decline was the first sign of what was to come. Between March and November 2001, the United States entered a recession. In other words, while Wall Street was still debating whether what was happening was a temporary slowdown, Las Vegas had already revealed the full picture. The same thing happened in 2008 with the so-called Great Recession. In 2007, occupancy reached 90.4%, almost full capacity. A year later, it fell to 86%, and in 2009, it plummeted to 81.5%. That simple percentage change meant the disappearance of millions of visitors and the loss of billions of dollars to the local economy. It was, once again, confirmation that the heartbeat of Las Vegas sets the rhythm of the U.S. economy. Today, in 2025, the pattern is repeating itself. The figures show declines in visitors, conventions, and hotel prices. The heart that always pumped strongly now beats more slowly, like a fatigued athlete anticipating collapse before the public notices. Those who know how to read this pulse understand that Las Vegas is much more than entertainment. It's an early indicator of economic storms.
Cuando el midweek se apaga. Entre los muchos indicadores de Las Vegas, hay uno que es el verdadero secreto para entender su economía: la ocupación entre semana, conocida como midweek. A diferencia de los viernes y sábados, que se llenan de turistas que buscan ocio, conciertos o despedidas de soltero, los días de lunes a jueves son el terreno de las convenciones y los viajes corporativos. Ese turismo corporativo es la locomotora que arrastra al resto de los vagones. Un congreso médico, una feria tecnológica o una reunión de ventas no solo llena habitaciones, también alimenta restaurantes, bares, taxis y espectáculos nocturnos. Cada ejecutivo que llega a una convención gasta no solo en alojamiento, sino en cenas, transporte y ocio. Pero cuando las empresas detectan incertidumbre, lo primero que recortan es el presupuesto de viajes. No se apaga la luz de la oficina, ni se elimina el café de la máquina. Se suspenden las conferencias, se posponen las ferias, se cancelan las reuniones presenciales. Y el efecto inmediato se siente en Las Vegas. Hoy, la ocupación midweek ha caído a un 75.5%, 7 puntos menos que el año anterior. Eso equivale a miles de habitaciones vacías de lunes a jueves, lo que genera un impacto silencioso pero devastador. Los hoteles reducen sus precios para intentar llenar, los restaurantes ven caer sus reservas en grupo y los conductores de taxi y Uber hacen menos viajes. Cada punto porcentual que desaparece es una cadena de ingresos que deja de circular. Este es el inicio de la secuencia que se repite cada vez. Primero se apaga el midweek, luego el turismo de ocio comienza a resentirse, y más tarde hasta los casinos terminan mostrando la caída. El midweek es como la primera ficha del dominó. Una vez que cae, la avalancha es inevitable. Déjalo grabado en los comentarios con esta afirmación poderosa. Nada me detiene, todo me impulsa. Porque incluso en tiempos donde los números parecen oscurecerse, siempre existe la posibilidad de transformar la dirección de tu propia historia.
The game of invisible prices. In Las Vegas, not everything is measured in visitors. There's one figure that often goes unnoticed, but it clearly reveals the state of the local economy: the average room rate. In June, this indicator fell 6.6%, equivalent to a reduction of $11 per night. For a tourist, it may seem like a small advantage, almost an imperceptible discount. But for the city's economic machinery, it represents a direct blow to its bottom line. If a 3,000-room hotel charges an average of $11 less per night, that's $33,000 less per day. Multiplied by 30 days, that's nearly $1 million in monthly losses for that establishment alone. And when we add up the more than 150,000 rooms available throughout the Las Vegas Valley, that seemingly small difference transforms into tens of millions in monthly losses. It's a silent but lethal dynamic. It's not just that fewer tourists are arriving, but that the few who do arrive are spending less. It's as if a restaurant that once served luxury dishes started selling only basic menus. The business continues to operate, but with a much lower margin. The sense of activity may deceive the eye, but the numbers don't lie. In economics, this phenomenon is called revenue erosion. The city is still alive, the lights are still on, and the casinos continue to spin. But beneath the glitter, there is a steady trickle that reduces profitability. It's the second step in a cycle that begins with falling occupancy and continues with price cuts, a defensive strategy that, however, further weakens the system. History has already taught us lessons. In 2009, after the financial crisis, the average room rate in Las Vegas fell from $135 to $92 in a matter of months. That difference dragged hundreds of small businesses into bankruptcy, because not only the hotels suffered, but also the suppliers, restaurants, drivers, and artists who depended on the influx of high-spending tourists. Today, the same story begins to repeat itself. The current figures are a warning. If room rates continue to fall, what we're seeing isn't an opportunity for visitors, but rather a sign that the city is entering a silent adjustment phase, where revenue begins to disappear drop by drop, like water seeping through an invisible crack. Visitors who no longer arrive. The soul of Las Vegas isn't in its buildings or its casinos, it's in the people who visit. Every tourist who lands at the airport or drives from California brings with them money, energy, and movement. But when visitors start to disappear, the entire city feels it like a lung breathing less air. In June, Las Vegas received 395,000 fewer visitors than the same month the previous year. To put that figure into perspective, it's as if the entire population of Miami had decided to stay home. This absence isn't just reflected in empty rooms, it's also noticeable in the empty seats at shows, the empty seats in restaurants, and the blackjack tables that once couldn't fit another player. Transportation data confirms this. Harry Reid Airport reported a drop in the number of commercial flights, and highway traffic statistics from Los Angeles and San Diego showed fewer cars entering Nevada. When the roads to Las Vegas empty, it's not just a matter of tourism. It's a reflection of families and businesses preferring to save their money, which heralds a slowdown in consumer spending nationwide. Every visitor who doesn't arrive is a lost spending opportunity. The average tourist spends around $827 per trip, according to the latest report from the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, LVCVA. Multiplying that figure by the nearly 400,000 absent visitors equates to more than $326 million that never entered circulation in the city in a single month. And when this lack of liquidity is repeated over and over again, it becomes a clear sign of a contraction. The most worrying thing is that these types of declines are rarely a one-off. They usually become a trend. This was the case between 2007 and 2009, when Las Vegas lost more than 3 million visitors in 2 years, marking one of the sharpest declines in its modern history. Today, indicators show that we're on the cusp of a similar scenario. Fewer flights, fewer conventions, fewer tourists. When a city that thrives on abundance receives fewer people, it's not just about numbers, it's a change in the atmosphere itself. Las Vegas begins to breathe more slowly. And in doing so, it warns us that the entire economy could be entering a phase of reduced oxygenation, where money flows more difficult and consumer confidence shrinks. Leave your mark in the comments with this quote: "I accept success and happiness in my life." Because amidst the warning signs, accepting the positive and keeping an open mind is the key to recognizing the opportunities that others don't see. The gambling mirage. At first glance, casinos seem immune to the economic downturn. In June of this year, they even recorded a 0.9% increase in revenue compared to the same month in 2024. For many, that figure is a sign of strength. While everything seems to be shaky, the gaming industry remains standing, like an oasis in the middle of the financial desert. But history has taught us that this oasis almost always turns out to be a mirage. In 2008, during the Great Recession, casinos were the last bastion to collapse. Rooms were already empty, conventions had disappeared, and tourism was experiencing historic declines. Still, for a few months, gambling revenues seemed to be holding up, until reality reached the colored chips and roulette tables as well. Between 2007 and 2009, casino revenue in Nevada fell by more than 10% annually, resulting in billions less dollars circulating in the city. The explanation is simple. At the beginning of a crisis, many people still have cash reserves or turn to credit. Gambling becomes an emotional outlet, a way to distract themselves from the economic malaise. However, when unemployment rises, savings dwindle, and credit cards max out, even gambling, that last luxury disguised as entertainment, collapses. What we see today in that 0.9% growth is actually an optical illusion. Like lights shining in the desert, it may seem like a sign of life, but behind it, we can already feel the tremors in the foundations. Full blackjack tables and pinging slot machines don't mean the economy is healthy. They just mean that resources remain that will soon stop flowing. The key is to understand that gambling doesn't mark the beginning of the crisis, but rather its delayed confirmation. When casinos fail, the recession ceases to be speculation and becomes a certainty. Today, that mirage reminds us that the pieces are turning, but they are doing so on a terrain that is already beginning to crumble. Mortgages and homes at risk. The Las Vegas economy isn't measured only by the lights of the Strip or the bustle of the casinos. It's also measured by something much quieter and more painful: homes. Because when the city enters economic stress, it's local families who bear the heaviest burden. In the first 6 months of 2025, more than 1,200 foreclosure notices were filed in the Las Vegas metropolitan area. Behind every number is a story: a family unable to pay the mortgage, a worker who lost their job, a couple who saw their dream of owning a home turn into an eviction notice. These are invisible wounds that reflect how the city's shine can crumble in everyday life. Unemployment in the region is also now higher than the national average, a pattern we've seen before. In 2001, after the dot-com bust, Las Vegas was one of the hardest hit markets. And in 2008, the city became the epicenter of foreclosures in the United States, with entire neighborhoods filled with empty houses and for sale signs. The cycle repeats itself. First conventions fall, then hotel occupancies, then household incomes, and finally, debt becomes an impossible mountain to climb. What's happening in Las Vegas isn't confined to the city. It mirrors what can happen in other parts of the country. When an economy so dependent on tourism and consumption shows cracks in its social fabric, it's a warning that financial fragility extends beyond its limits. Right now, many homes are experiencing the same paradox as hotels. The facade remains standing, but the interior is slowly emptying. Families keep turning on the lights, but they no longer have the same income stream to sustain them. It's a reminder that the crisis is not just a macroeconomic phenomenon. It's also a human tragedy that knocks on every door. Write it in the comments as an empowering affirmation. I accept success, money, and happiness into my life. Because even amid cycles of debt and hardship, our relationship with abundance begins with how we choose to think and feel about what happens. The desert without a plan B. Las Vegas has always been a city built on a single pillar: tourism. Unlike Houston, which has energy, Seattle, which breathes technology, or New York, which thrives on finance, Las Vegas lacks factories, ports, or massive innovation centers. Its only driving force is the constant arrival of visitors. This specialization is its greatest strength in times of prosperity, but also its greatest weakness when the flow stops. 2020 was a brutal reminder of this fragility. All it took was for planes to stop landing and tourists to be unable to travel, for hotel occupancy to fall to historic lows, just 27% in April of that year, the lowest in decades. The Strip was transformed into a literal desert. Casinos closed, shows canceled, streets empty. The city that never sleeps fell silent. That episode made it clear that Las Vegas has no backup plan. Its economy cannot easily be shifted to digital, nor does it depend on international supply chains that can be redirected. The formula is simple. Without tourists, there is no income. Every empty room, every free seat at a show, and every taxi without a passenger become reminders that the city depends on an external flow it cannot control. Today, in 2025, the ghost of that dependence reappears. The drop in visitors, the decline in conventions, and the reduction in hotel prices are signs that, once again, the local economy is staggering in step with shrinking tourism. And while the present is not as dramatic as the total shutdown of 2020, the structural vulnerability is the same. Las Vegas is on the brink of life support. The desert without a plan B teaches us a profound lesson. Diversification is not just a business strategy, but a necessity for survival. And as long as there is no solid second source of income, every global turbulence will once again remind us that the city of gambling doesn't always work in its favor. The global echo of a local whisper. There's a popular saying, "What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas." In economic terms, nothing could be further from the truth. What happens in the desert city has repercussions that extend far beyond its geographic boundaries. Every drop in hotel occupancy affects banks that finance those projects, supply chains that supply restaurants, and airlines that depend on the flow of tourists. Every percentage point drop in visitors means less spending, fewer tips, and less tax revenue. The impact reverberates through mortgages, commercial loans, and market confidence. In 2008, the collapse of the Las Vegas economy was one of the first indications of the magnitude of the global crisis. While analysts were still debating whether the problem was limited to the real estate sector, the city was already showing plummeting numbers. Falling room rates, the loss of millions of visitors, and, ultimately, the collapse of casino revenues. That sequence was an early echo of what would later spread to the entire world. Today, that story seems to be repeating itself. The indicators of 2025 show signs that, although local, anticipate international tensions. Fewer tourists mean less flight consumption, less spending on credit cards, fewer imports to supply restaurants and hotels. A city that slowly shuts down becomes a reflection of a global economic system that is beginning to cool. The metaphor is simple. If the neon lights of Las Vegas start flickering, it's not a simple power failure. It's a warning that the current that fuels the economy, spending, credit, confidence, is drying up. And when that happens, what seemed eternal can suddenly shut down. Leave it in the comments with this empowering affirmation. I am prosperous and I attract wealth. Because understanding the signs isn't just about anticipating crises. It's also about preparing the mind to receive abundance even in times of uncertainty. Las Vegas speaks to us in numbers, but in reality, what it holds up to us is a mirror. Every fall in its hotels, at its conventions, or at its gaming tables is a reflection of what the entire world is about to face. Today, as in 2001 and 2008, the city reminds us that no spectacle lasts forever, and that the economy, like a casino, always holds an unexpected twist on the roulette wheel. If this message resonated with you, it's because your intuition already knows. We are at the beginning of something big. Subscribe and join me on this journey, because what's coming, more than just news, will be a lesson for us all.